Welcome to DoD Secure, and I'm your host, Jeff Bennett. All right, so let's talk about the impact. The impact is reporting based on the 13 adjudicative criteria. Remember, these are the 13 criteria, not only that a person will be evaluated during their security clearance investigation process, but it's also the same criteria that we're supposed to evaluate ourselves and each other with and report on while we have our security clearance. So this is that reportable information that we're always taught about in training. The SCAD 3 identifies required reporting of data elements that are contained in the standard form 86, which is the questionnaire for national security positions, which we've talked about many times on this podcast. And it's used to request security clearances. In other words, the guidance issued requires that cleared employees under the NISP report information reflective of these 13 adjudicative criteria and any other items listed in SF 86. And this has always been a NISPOM requirement. We've always been required to report this. The change, though, is that the SCAD 3 requires these elements to be reported prior to participating in such activities. So I'm kind of trying to make sense of it. Like in the first case, it might make sense if you say, I'm going to report foreign influence. I have a online relationship, or I have a relationship with a person who is not a U.S. citizen, for example. I need to report that prior to that relationship getting too close. And I don't know what that means. Do you have to report a letter that you wrote? Not sure. But if this relationship is developing significantly, and this person could potentially have influence over your decisions, or could be in a position to have influence over your position, they may never have this influence, but it's the appearance of it, right? It's the optics. If it appears that you could be in a relationship that could cause you to have doubts about your allegiance, such as a relationship with a foreign person, or if you intend to invest in banks in other countries, or you intend to run for office in other countries, this makes sense because we can pre-plan that and we can arrange for it. But the one of the things that I'm kind of looking at is joining organizations that wish to overthrow the United States. How do you report that? Well, if you're going to report that, then you just won't do it. But I think the intent here is for the things that will happen, we need to start that report. For example, here's the attention grabber. Even though this has always been taught in security awareness training, that facility security officers and security managers have been training their cleared employees all of these years. This is not a new requirement. Report information as it reflects the 13 adjudicated criteria, right? It's always been a requirement. But the new part is we need to report them before they happen, which is kind of falls under the umbrella of the original requirement. But here's the rub. Here's the attention grabber. There's a strong argument now that we will need to, Cleared Defense Contractors will need to report any unofficial travel overseas. We normally do that. We go and tell our facility security officer, hey, I'm going overseas on travel. Is there anything else I need to report? And they'll give us a briefing to say, watch out for foreign contacts, watch out for people trying to get information from you, be careful, report to the State Department where you're going to travel in case something happens, and etc. But this right here implies that this report should not stop with the Cleared Defense Contractor, that it should be submitted to the Cognizant Security Office, which for the DoD is the Defense Counterintelligence Security Agency. So now it appears that we're going to need to require new training. We're going to develop a reporting process where it doesn't stop with the FSO. So some questions might come up, for example, this required training, enforcement, and actual reporting process will be from the cleared employee straight to the DSA through the FSO. For example, the DSC would have to provide guidance at this point on what should happen in this situation. For example, maybe you want to go with your family to Mexico and Bahamas on a cruise. This is pretty normal behavior. Thousands of people do it every year, maybe tens of thousands cleared employees do this. So now this is going to have to be factored in. How far in advance should the travel request this approval is a question that I have. How do they request approval? Do they go through the FSO? Do they FSO go online to the JPass and whatever will replace JPass? And then how does this approval get provided back to the requesting cleared employee? Now, is this approval that said, yes, you may travel, no, you may not travel? Or is this approval saying, I recognize that you submitted this report, have a great trip? Not sure what that's going to look like. And so that's where I foresee guidance coming out through DCSA on how we will execute this. But my recommendation is you as a defense contractor should be looking into this and expect this problem. So there are a few other changes that impact the majority of cleared defense contractors. There's clarifications of who's responsible, or for those who are responsible for accountability of top secret information, prescribed information, and classified document retention. And there's also clarifications for those who reside under foreign ownership, control, and influence. And I'll write and discuss these in a future date. But for the most part, these clarifications are already being applied appropriate. As I read these clarifications and digest them and define them, it appears that we are already supporting these in generally as a cleared defense contractor, and they are reflected in the training that we are providing to our cleared defense employees. But for more information, just you can check out this on the SCAD3 that I just briefed you. There is a good, I'm just bringing it up right now. So this is the actually SCAD3 directive, reporting requirements for personnel with access to classified information. If you want to read more, you can get this link on the podcast, but it's at dni.gov. It's a rather long link, but I'll make a link to it at the podcast so you can go. But you see me scrolling through here, get all the definitions, get all the information. I might do another podcast in this series of articles on these requirements alone. All right, but as for most of us to understand, the NISPOM as it's currently released still stands. So what should cleared defense contractors do or not do with this information? Don't wait for a newer version of the NISPOM yet. Don't stop what you're doing. Don't panic. Don't clear your library. Keep reading, understanding, becoming familiar with this. This is our foundational document for cleared defense contractors to establish security programs to protect classified information. Nothing has changed. Only additional clarifications have been given. I recommend reviewing these clarifications in more depth, becoming familiar with them, and assess any changes that your organization may have to go through to meet these recommended clarifications. I also recommend that continue using the current NISPOM for your security training. Keep referring to it. A new one has not been published. I know the 5250.22-M will no longer be published under that CFR, but there are a few recommendations that I think could happen. One is it could be repackaged and called a different DoD manual. And what I mean repackaged is these clarifications are written into it in the appropriate spaces. So it could be republished under the current CFR part, or so that's the only thing that I really see happening. I don't see it being destroyed and never used again. I don't see it being completely rewritten again. It could happen, but since this CFR guidance has been put out, and since they've said the change 2 of NISPOM still stands, then that's the one we should be using. Continue to use this for your security training, your ISP or industrial security oversight certification. Again, nothing's been changed. It's just been codified. It's just been rearranged to be more streamlined. Continue to apply the current NISPOM at your facility. As stated in the source, in this CFA, contractors are expected to comply with it. Eventually, there will either be a re-release or a republishing of the NISPOM under a new title, or an acceptance of the current publication. So that's it. A few points just to wrap up. 1, CFR Part 17 and Part 1, 2004 are redundant. Part 2004 is the current standing CFR. NISPOM Change 2 is still a requirement as indicated in this document that we've been reviewing. So I recommend going through that document. There's some changes that are coming up that I'll cover later. And so these changes, I'm going to stop sharing. All right, so these changes include, let me scroll down because I'm listing these in here. Reporting requirements are changing, as I talked about under the SC 83. Limited entity eligibility determination and limited entity eligibility determination due to foci is being clarified. Requirements for national interest determinations is being clarified. Now, top secret information, this clarification permits specific determinations by DCSA or DoD with respect to requirements for top secret accountability. Remember, accountability of top secret requires a top secret compliance officer, TSCO, and it requires documenting the arrival, the existence, and the status of the top secret information as it resides in the Cleared Defense Contractor organization. As a reminder, top secret information is accountable. Secret and below is accountable, but you don't need an accountability system. You just need to manage it and demonstrate that you're taking care of it. But the more formal accountability process resides with top secret information and certain secret information as well, but not all secret. Clarifies also that an intrusion detection system shall be installed by a nationally recognized testing laboratory. And it also clarifies responsibilities of the senior management official of each Cleared Defense Contractor. So it goes over some of those. So that's it. That's the new NISPOM. I'm glad to say that it's not going to cause a major upheaval or change for us Cleared Defense Contractors. It is something that maybe the lawyers might look at, security clearance lawyers and other issues as we try to implement this new codification and these new recommendations. For example, how do we report this travel, and what does the travel approval look like? So hopefully we'll get some guidance soon. I'm planning on going on there. This will be up until February for comments, and I might make those comments on there, and they're inviting the public to do the same. So I encourage you to do that. If you feel that there's something in here that the originators of the CFR need to know, go on board and make your comments. Until then, thanks for joining us. I'm Jeff Bennett. I'm with Red Bike Publishing. I have links to how you can get in touch with me, but editor@redbikepublishing.com is a good way. And I'd appreciate it if you'd support this podcast and this video by visiting our store at www.redbikepublishing.com, or visit our training at BennettInstitute.com, BENNET.